We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk some Arizona basketball. We're going to talk some Arizona football. We're going to talk some Arizona women's basketball. Let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, we've got a lot to get to today. We are going to talk some Arizona football. We're going to talk some Arizona basketball. We're going to talk some Arizona women's basketball as well. We've got a lot to get to. But first, let's talk about the remaining players that we didn't really get to during the Arizona Red-Blue game. Now, first and foremost, you got a guy in Kylan Boswell who is not playing, obviously. Yet still dealing with a foot injury. Here's the thing with Kylan is Kylan Boswell is a five-star. Kylan Boswell is a five-star point guard. We all know that. He graduated a year early. That's obviously a nice little thing right there. On top of that, he is basically a perfect fit for what Arizona wants to do. I don't think that Tommy Lloyd necessarily needs the dynamic point guard per se. Again, I don't think that Tommy Lloyd's ever going to sit there and say that that he would prefer to not have a dynamic point guard. But I do think that Arizona is basically in the situation where you can get through with it this year because of Kurt Kriisa. He's right there, and I think after that, you start looking at it and you're like, this is going to be Kylan Boswell's team at some point. And Kylan Boswell is, again, I think the perfect guy for Tommy Lloyd's team. What's also intriguing to me about Boswell is while he's very, very good, he's not necessarily a home run NBA player. Now, to be fair, and again, I don't want to minimize what he can do, he definitely has the capability to be able to play in the NBA. That's kind of where we're at. But he's not really the no-brainer type. He's not the Mike Bibby where it's like, okay, he's going to be here a year and then he's going to be out or anything like that. He's probably a 2 or 3 year guy, very much in that Gonzaga mold. I don't know what exactly his fans' expectations for him should be this year because, again, you're coming off a foot injury. You're also an 18-year-old. Now, why when I watch Arizona, though, another guy that I'm also intrigued by is Dylan Anderson. Dylan Anderson, a lot of people kind of jumped off the Dylan Anderson bandwagon because I think they thought that he was, he was playing on the perimeter. He wasn't exactly what people wanted, what people wanted to see out of him. But I never really worried too much about that because I always felt that if he got to Arizona, that Tommy Lloyd would be able to get him in a spot, be able to get him in a position to where he is going to excel, to where he can be that player. And because, again, in high school, the really good players can essentially do what they want. But it becomes a little bit different when you get to the college game because, again, you're playing for a coach. You're under a scholarship provision right there, and it becomes a little bit different. Now, one thing that I will say is that I do watch Arizona, and I wonder, yes, they're going to be deep, but I do wonder about that high upside potential of some of their players. One other guy, though, to keep an eye on, obviously, is Filip Borovichinin. We talked about him a little bit the other day. Borovichinin is a guy, again, with a ton of potential. You look at him, he's an angular 6'8", and he's really, really well put together. I did not expect him to look like that, quite frankly. I thought that he would look a little more young, I guess. But he looks physically like he's going to be able to step in and play right there. To what level, I don't know. The main reason, though, that I don't know is because Arizona's already got a bunch of players in that position as well, where, you've already got Um, you've already got that um, with when it comes to Arizona. You've already got Pelle Larson, you've already got Cedric Henderson, you've already got Courtney Ramey. These are guys that are going to play, and they should play because, quite frankly, you play because you have, because you talent, experience. But Borovicinen's going to get there. When he gets there, he's going to be a problem. Um, so that's kind of where we're at with the Arizona men's basketball. Also wanted to talk a little bit of Arizona women's basketball as well. Media day was on Friday, and while I don't know that this is going to be Adia Barnes' best team, I do believe that this is going to be. I do believe that this is going to be her deepest team and maybe her most talented because you look at it across the board, he checks off a lot of boxes there. You've already got offensively, you've already got a bunch of different players you brought in. And last year, obviously, it was a struggle to score the ball. But you got, I almost said Aaron McDonald. You've got Jay LaVille coming in. You've got Lauren Fields. You've got Esmery Martinez. These are players that were at high-powered Division I programs that all averaged, between 12 and 17 points per game. Now, they're not all equal necessarily. I think Jay LaVille, you would hope, is going to be Arizona's top offensive threat. I think that there's the capability of doing that for sure because anybody that watches Arizona women's basketball knows that watching her last year against Arizona, you could see what she could do, and that was against a pretty good defense as well. So those three players right there, I'm very excited to see. Then you look at the newcomers as well. You've got Maya Nnaji, who is the highest rated player to ever sign with Arizona, top 10 player, 6'4", just a big, strong, and just powerful out there. A very talented player right now. I would imagine she starts from day one. If she doesn't start, then that's a good thing because that means that Lauren Ware, who we're going to get to in just a second, is probably playing really good ball. But one thing that I do think is Arizona is going to have a lot of depth, and it's going to be talented depth. It's going to be good depth. It's not going to be the depth where there's a bunch of roster filler in there. That's not really the case. So then you look at the guards because last year, again, Shayna Pellington, very good, but there was a little bit of a lack of a dynamic factor right there. I think bringing in Paris Clark, I think bringing in Kaylin Gilbert, those are two players that Arizona obviously physically and impact wise didn't have on their roster last year. Both of them are cat quick. Both of them can score. I'm curious to see how they're both utilized because they're both very good. And don't let the McDonald's All-American stuff fool you per se because Kaylin Gilbert is a top 20 player in the nation. Sure, she didn't play on the get selected for the McDonald's game, but guess what? She was also on Team USA. So, take that one right there with a grain of salt. Lamaya Hilton, very intrigued to see her. It's harder to really judge some of the Canadian prospects, but Adia Barnes obviously has a really good eye for talent. So something obviously there to keep in mind as well. Then you look at the returning players. Kate Reese seems to be healthy. She's got a gnarly little scar down her shoulder right there that, certainly, it'll be interesting to see how she looks. But so far, so good. It looks like she's ready to go. She seemed healthy. She seemed confident in where she's at. So Kate Reese right there, looking for a big year out of her. Lauren Ware just physically looks very good right now. I'm curious to see where if she's able to continue to sustain it. But right now, physically looks the part. Looks like she can. Looks like she's going to be able to play a lot of minutes. And our good friend PJ Brown said a lot of people are sleeping on her, and they shouldn't be sleeping on her because she's talented. She's in her junior year in the program. She's healthy. And so I'm excited to see that. Then you've obviously got Shayna Pellington as well. Shayna was the kind of the player that made plays for Arizona last year when the game came down to the wire. And I would imagine that it's going to be much of the same. It's going to be much of the same way going forward. Then you see someone like Helena Puello, who is kind of the jack of all trades, can do a little bit of everything, talented. You know that Adia Barnes is a fan of hers, so she's going to get minutes for sure. And then Maddie Connor, really good shooter, needs to continue to work on her defense, but again, another really hard worker out there, and somebody that I think is going to have a nice little impact for Arizona. All right, now let's take a quick break and then come back. We're going to get to a segment brought to you by BetOnline, where we're going to talk about some BetOnline. All right. Now, thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right. Now, BetOnline. BetOnline Sportsbook is obviously where it's at. This is where you want to get all of your stuff. It's easy to navigate. And the best thing about it, too, is that when you get on there, you can go bet futures, you can bet in games, you can bet props, you can bet all kinds of stuff. There's a reason it's been around so long, and the reason that it's been around so long is because it works. It's easy and it's fun. Football's here, basketball's here. BetOnline Sportsbook is the place to be. All right, now I like Arizona before the year. One of my big locks was I loved the over 3 wins. I thought that Arizona was absolutely going to get over 3 wins this year, and I think we're also making to the point where Arizona also has the ability to be able to. Arizona's got the ability to get in that 5-win realm, and I think they are going to be able to get into that 5-win realm. I think with when it comes to this Arizona football squad, there's a couple things that you certainly need to keep in mind. First, Arizona's better, I think, than Vegas thought before the season. And a big reason that Arizona's better is because Jayden de Laura is the quarterback. Again, not making it out like, I am, because the difference in quarterback is probably about as remarkable as there is in college football, because last year, Arizona, it was impossible to have a worse passing attack than Arizona. It just couldn't happen. And Arizona, it kind of, that ended up showing throughout the year. Now, when it comes to this squad, though, they can score points. Now, the defense has definitely struggled. There's no way around that. The defense has not been good. But this team is going to be able to stay in games because of the offensive side of the ball. And obviously, a major reason for that is Jayden de Laura. And he's been a really, really good player for the University of Arizona. And then the passing game, barring injury, isn't going to slow down because you've got other receivers. You've got a Jacob Cowing. You've got a T-Mac. You've got a you've got a Dorian Singer. You've got a Tanner McLaughlin, who, as we've talked about, is absolutely great to talk about. And this is going to be a squad, though, that is, I think they're going to end up with about 4 or 5 wins, and they're going to beat that Vegas odd. And you know what? If you were going to bet on this, you should have bet on it at the BetOnline Sportsbook. All right, now we will be right back with you. We're going to talk about kind of the rest of the season, where Arizona football goes from here, and kind of get you ready for the next couple weeks. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, this segment is brought to you by LinkedIn. Now, remember, with LinkedIn, the best thing about LinkedIn is that, first of all, everybody's gotten a job from LinkedIn, or everybody knows somebody that's got a job from LinkedIn. You can post your job for free, linkedin.com/lockedoncollege, and everything will it will work out for you. Get the applicants you need for free, sponsored by LinkedIn. I know I've gotten jobs through LinkedIn. You know people that have gotten jobs through LinkedIn. Heck, you probably know people that got jobs through LinkedIn. That's where it is. That's where it should be. Check it out. LinkedIn.com/lockedoncollege. All right. Now, Arizona football going forward. Where can you find some more wins here? Now, the Pac-12 is kind of in a weird spot because you get a lot of different people that are saying, well, Arizona can't beat this team, or Arizona can't beat that team. And we heard that about Washington now. Well, Washington's too good for Arizona. Okay, fair enough, whatever. Washington just went out and lost to UCLA, a team that snuck away with a victory against Southern Illinois on the last kick of the game. So, now I think the naysayers would say, well, that just proves that Arizona couldn't beat either team. I would say that it shows that those two teams are both vulnerable on certain days. And again, when I watch this team, the only teams that I look at and I say, it's going to be, I don't really see an Arizona path to victory. I don't really see an Arizona path to victory against Utah. I think they're just kind of equipped at a different level. And generally, the bigger, the more physical teams are harder to be able to defend, especially if you're Arizona. Now, I do think that it'll against USC, you have the possibility of being able to stay in that game just because USC hasn't necessarily looked great in all of its weeks. And again, it's a team that relies more on talent than just physicality and girth like Utah does. So Arizona could have a chance there. Utah, though, I think is a very difficult game. Oregon, I think, is a game that I don't see Arizona winning, but I also give them at least a chance in that game because, again, if you watched Oregon against Georgia, granted, Georgia's the best team in the country. I totally get it. But it was watching like a high school versus the eighth grade team. I mean, the difference was just stunning. You watched last week against Washington State as well. Got lucky, but I didn't come away thinking that was a juggernaut. Wazoo is much the same way. I think Wazoo is solid, but I also don't think that Wazoo is a team that is unbeatable. So there are wins to be had out there, and I think it's important for Arizona fans to remember that because, again, I think people fall in, and obviously ASU as well. ASU is a dumpster fire. Arizona should be able to beat ASU, and if Arizona doesn't beat ASU, then I think that we're in a world of trouble right there, mainly because ASU, quite frankly, just isn't good. And by then, I could easily see them have quitting by then. So I'm curious to see what happens exactly there. Now, but again, don't fall into the trap that I think so many fans fall into is saying, well, you know what, we can't win any of these games. These games are winnable. Again, you're not playing Alabama and Georgia each week. Again, I think a lot of people are kind of turned off by what they saw against California, but I do kind of take the coaches at their word a little bit when they say that, a lot of that stuff was correctable from tackling to angles, so it'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming weeks because, we'll find out how correctable that really is with good coaching. But I do agree with a lot of that evaluation, honestly. Now, I think, but Arizona to me, I always thought going into the year, and we've talked about this, but if Arizona gets 5 wins, to me, that would be an easy thing to be able to sell to players, or be able to sell to recruits. Jed Fish says, "Listen, I come in here, and the first thing that I do is." We bring in a dynamic recruiting staff. We bring in a top 25 class. Yes, we only got 1 win, but you need to remember that came in here on a 12-game losing streak to begin with one of the worst rosters in the country. Bring in a top 25 class. We go from 1 win to 5 wins. Then you sell it saying, okay, then the next season, you try to get into that 7 or that 8 win realm. And then it just kind of keeps going from there. But again, I think Arizona's on target here. They're going to have to do a lot on the defensive side of the ball because we've seen enough to know that it's not good enough right now. I think that's, to put it mildly. But offensively, they are light years better than they've been in the past. And I think they're going to continue to be. I think DeLaura, I would imagine he's going to be here maybe 1 more year, and I think he's going to make a lot of plays. I'm excited to see what Arizona can do. But I do feel, though, that this team is significantly better than last year, and people do need to realize that. Sure, again, there are going to be some tough games, but this year's Arizona team would absolutely smash last year's Arizona team. And at this time next year, I think we're sitting here hoping that we can be having that same conversation where, all right, is Arizona going to be able to make that next step? Would they smash the previous year's team? But again, Jed Fish wants to be here. That's a big part of it. We've talked about that from day one. So again, we'll be back with you tomorrow, though, getting you ready for the following week. Maybe talk a little bit of Arizona basketball as well. But as always, Appreciate everybody out there, and you have a great rest of your Wednesday. And you have been listening to